let me start off with some statistical data on Mumbai. 7 million people live in slums. 2.5 million people live in old and dilapidated cessed buildings, which are 19,800 earlier. Now they are 16,950. 7 million in slum, dilapidated buildings. 1.5 million people living in 105 MADA colonies built by the government. 15,000 people living in BIT chawls and about 20,000 people living in BDD chawls. And 1 million people living in quarters allocated by their employers, whether it is government employees, whether it is railways, whether it is LIC, whether it is municipal corporation and so on. So whether it is police, the moment your job is over, you have to leave the house. So taking all these into being, if you were to ask one single question to all the residents of Mumbai as to, do you have adequate shelter or are you in the category of inadequate shelter? 98.2% would be in the category of inadequate shelter. How? 7 million slum dwellers, obviously inadequate. 2.5 million people living in old and dilapidated buildings, of which 85% having common toilets, and they need to ease themselves out not on the basis of when they feel like, but on the basis of when the toilet is available to them. You 1 million people living in staff quarters who have to leave the staff quarters at the mercy of their employers or when they superannuate, in which case what was their house for 35-40 years suddenly becomes an alien place and they have to leave and go where no one really knows. MADA houses which were one room kitchen or at best one bedroom hall kitchen, that's what 90% of MADA houses are all in need of redevelopment, and they are in really bad condition. They need to be redeveloped, and the developers have taken their toll, and so they are into inadequate shelter. Even the remaining, that is 10% of people who have bought flats with the builders, have bought them when the family was small and they could afford a one-bedroom hall kitchen, and the children then grow. What is required is an additional bedroom, but that additional bedroom is never available, and so they lapse into inadequate shelter. So if you were to say adequate and inadequate, I'm sure a few living in APNC Road or few living in Kulaba having 2,500 square feet or something may perhaps call themselves in adequate shelter. A study of everyone likes to talk about Marine Drive. A study of 112 buildings in Marine Drive have shown us that the condition in which the Marine Drive residents live is worse than the chawls of Girgam or Kalba Devi. Why? Because the flat may be 1,000 square feet, but was taken by the grandfather or great-grandfather who had 2 children or 3 children, and each one was given 1 bedroom or half a bedroom or portion of the hall, and they in turn had 2-3 children. So 1,000 square feet flat would have anywhere between 16 or 18 people living in Marine Drive. So all this talk about which the politicians make about Marine Drive people living in luxury is really not true, which there are so many more people living in those houses. There are stray examples of some families where 2 people living in a 2,500 square feet, but these are far and remote. So the situation is that every single person virtually in Mumbai is looking for a house, and that ratio would never be there anywhere in the city. And then what is affordable? According to government definitions and definitions all over the world, it is generally treated that 5 years annual income should, if you get a house which is 5 years of your annual income, or at the most outer limit 6 years of your annual income, then it is affordable. You can take loans and it can be serviced within whatever your income is. And then you go ahead. But 5 years annual income, if you put together, then I'm sure that 98% of the city's population cannot afford a house. The remotest and the cheapest possible house would either be in Dahisar or in perhaps Bandu. And even there the rate is between 12,000 and 15,000. Somewhere in the most godforsaken areas it could come down to 10,000. So a 600 or 700 square feet flat in the remotest of Mumbai's suburbs would be costing 65 lakhs or 70 lakhs. Divide that into 5 years income, your income should at least be 1.5 lakh or 1,25,000 per month to be able to afford a house in Dahisar or in Bhandup. If you can't afford that, and people earning 1 lakh or 1.5 lakh in the city would be just about a percentage or two of the city's population, which means Mumbai has 12 million people, of which just 2% can afford houses anywhere. The rest only have to dispose of what they have today and put in some extra and buy a house. That means no one can really afford, have enough money so that they can take a loan and service the loan and buy a house. That situation doesn't exist in Mumbai. And Mumbai perhaps is the only city anywhere in India and perhaps in the world where this situation is so acute. Now, given this situation, what are the solutions that we are trying to bring in? For every single problem, our solution is very simple: increase the FSI. So Mumbai suburb had 1 FSI. It was increased. Chembur is an ideal example. 0.5 FSI was increased to 1, was increased to 1.5, was increased to 2, then was increased to 2.7. Today it is 3.2. That means a Chembur over 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 one more Chembur. 6 times Chembur would go one above the other, with the refineries belching out whatever toxins and more people living there breathing the same air. And that becomes our solution. Is that really our solution? Is increasing FSI going to solve the city's problem? The answer is a broad no, but the government doesn't seem to be understanding. And one always then hopes, when one government doesn't understand, one feels, oh, if this goes and some new government comes, they would understand. Then the new government comes and you start all over again trying to explain to them, and then they don't understand. Then you say, okay, now they go, and the earlier one may come and may perhaps understand. So you kind of get into this circle of thinking in terms of changing governments for your solution, for the problem for which you have solution, but no one wants to attempt it, because the entire system is driven by a vicious circle where we have created a new kind of animal called the developer, and it's